Today's guest is an artist whose career reflects talent, versatility, and creativity across every medium he touches. Oli Higginson is an actor, musician, writer, and producer, steadily building a body of work across stage, screen, and music that sets him apart. On stage, Oli played Claudio in Measure for Measure with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and his credits also include Othello, Smoke, Lava, and After Sex, each showing his ability to take risks and bring something new to the stage. On screen, Oli has captivated audiences worldwide. He appears in all 4 seasons of Bridgerton, starred in the short film Pipe Dream, portrayed Jacques Brel in Julia, and will step into the role of Sherlock Holmes in True Sherlock. His creativity also extends into music as Modern Oli, where he writes and records original songs that showcase yet another side of his artistry. Beyond performance, he has worked with leading writers collectives and co-founded Three Hearts Canvas, a production company that allows him to shape stories on and off the stage. Oli Higginson is a true multi-talented artist, an actor, musician, writer, and producer whose versatility and drive make him one of the most exciting voices in entertainment today. So let's welcome Oli Higginson.
Oli, thank you so much for coming into the podcast today. I'm so excited.
Thanks so much for having me, Erin. It's a pleasure.
So you're such a versatile individual with so many talents, so I want to get right into it with some opening act questions.
Okay.
Amanda couldn't be here today, but she has prepped some questions for you. So she's going to pop in right now, and she's going to ask you those questions.
Awesome.
Hi, Oli. This is Amanda. I'm sorry I couldn't be there today for the interview, but I did have a couple of questions for you. My first question is, if you could swap lives with any character you've played for one day, who would it be and why?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Oh, I've played a lot of pretty unhappy people. I think I would have to go. I'd have to go with Footman John in Bridgerton because, well, actually working for the Bridgerton house, it's hard work, but it's very rewarding. It's a very happy household and very fun, and they've got amazing treats and like things being made in the kitchen that I'd just be eating all day. And there's just so much, yeah, there's so much like silliness and fun to be had in a house like that. So yeah, that's a happy place to be for a day. I mean, I'd love to be there for longer than a day, probably, but yeah, I'd go Footman Joy and Bridgerton. I'll happily trade largely. The wig is a bit annoying, but other than that, we'd be good. We'd be happy.
My second question is, what are 3 words your friends would use to describe you?
Oh. Ah, um, what would they use? I mean, I'm quite a chaotic individual. Like, sort of just absolutely enthralled at all times with life and going on adventures. So let's say enthralled, and really, really, really silly. Yeah.
My last question is, what is your go-to comfort movie or show after a hard day at work? Thanks, Oli.
I'm a weird guy because I like, unlike a lot of people, like to go and watch a bit of reality TV, something kind of brain drainy, or something light and fun, which I do love. I love things like Arrested Development, The Office, but for me, I like digging into something really horrible and sad and intense. So I'd probably go for like a really intense drama or something. I'd watch something like I'd watch like something like, do you know that film Closer? Do you know that film Closer? Great film.
I like dark films too, but no, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's very dark, but very funny. It's about kind of lots of people having affairs. It's a pretty grim thing, but it's so well done and yeah, great cast and stuff. So something like that, I just want to get engrossed in something really, really intense,
Sounds
and
messy.
emotional and messy. I don't know why. That's like my happy place. It gives me a sense of, yeah, kind of, I don't know, humanity, the kind of, sometimes you go a bit easier on yourself if you're looking at stories in which people get things wrong, I guess. Not to make it too deep, but that's probably it. Whereas sometimes I find like a really like positive, happy thing a bit like alienating, and I'm like, oh, I'm not in that. I don't feel like that.
Yep. Yep. Might
Um,
relate to that. Yeah.
yeah. But hey, big shout out to Arrested Development because that is like just and Peep Show as well. Obsessed with those. But yeah.
Yeah. Amanda is in love with The Office.
Yeah. The Office is amazing. It's amazing. I love the I love the British one and the American one. A lot of people always like, oh no, the British one's the best. I think the American one's actually better. It's so good. I'd love to be on a show like that actually. I love like, long running shows when people that's one of the great things about Bridgerton. When people get to know like an ensemble of people, a world really deeply, I think that's so exciting compared to, in a movie or something, you only really get a couple of hours with these characters. But in something like The Office, we had years of getting to know these people and you love them. But yeah. So yeah.
You guys are a family on Bridgerton.
Yeah. Yes, we are. We are. Well, I mean, I'm not in the family, but I'm always trying to, be a part of it.
If you
Great.
could play any villain on stage or screen, what would it be?
Oh my God.
Talk about dark.
Yeah, I very, very, very much love playing villains or people who are in a dark place. So that's a really, really, really tough question because I sort of love them all. I would love to play. This is so ridiculous. I would love to play a serial killer who existed. I'd love to play someone like Ted Bundy. Yeah, someone like that, either on stage or on screen. And then I suppose in Shakespeare, I'd love to play like Iago or some of those kind of brilliantly just disgusting individuals. Yeah, serial killer though. Someone really or kind of really like messed up political figure. But in terms of a net, if I could name, let's just say Ted Bundy. But I mean, it could really be pretty anyone in that ilk. I just find fascinating.
Yep.
When human beings are just on the absolute edge of madness, but also like really human and sort of maybe even quite charming. And I find that just very interesting.
I
What
think
human
your
beings.
prep for that role would be really fun. Like Heath Ledger locked himself in a room for like a month to play the Joker.
Oh, I'd love to play the Joker. I'd love to play the Joker. Yeah, locked yourself in a room. Is that fun? I remember I did it when I was at drama school. I played a few pretty nasty people. And when I was at drama school, I was in a play called Mercury Fur,
Mhm.
which is quite big in the UK, like quite kind of renowned. And and I played a serial killer in that. And I must say that the research was amazing, but actually it was so grim because I was just looking up really, really awful things that happened to people and the situations people had gotten themselves into. And also like, these people, the people I was looking at were all men who had, started off in really quite privileged environments and then somehow, just it had just wreaked havoc on their minds and they'd ended up just doing the most despicable, horrible things. So I think that research can be draining. I think the best bit is the doing it, I think, for me. I like just living inside, yeah, someone's mind,
To
and
see how you interpret it yourself.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
do that
yeah,
with Sherlock Holmes.
yeah.
I want to know how you get into that role.
God, I don't even know how I'm gonna do that. I'm sort of like I'm trying not to think because we're not gonna be filming that until next year, so I'm sort of trying not to overthink it. Sherlock Holmes, I mean, yeah, obviously he's kind of a hero type figure in a way for a lot of people. So I think that's harder actually because it's easier to it's a bit like playing like James Bond or something.
Yep.
You've kind of got an easier job. I'd rather do the Bond villain generally than do Bond because you're trying to make an already loved person like Sherlock Holmes, already loved person I guess, even more lovable. Or what I would generally like to do is try and find their, their flaws and their kind of their cracks and harder edges and explore those bits because that's a bit more interesting.
I love that how you dissect them. That is
Yeah,
like really
yeah, it's
back
so
those secrets.
oh, it's so good. It's so good. And that's why it's great. If you've got a great writing team and a great director, then you can really together you can craft something that is just layered, which I think sometimes with a lot of roles actually that I've ended up turning down, they've often been just so two-dimensionally perfect. And I think that is just so boring. And it's also not really me. And maybe some people are more. I'm a fully three-dimensional human being with anxieties and issues and problems, as well as great things. And so I don't like shutting things down in order to play a character. I kind of like to bring everything out and go, here we go. Like this is my toolkit. This is what I'm working with. So you want a character who's going to have all that. So I hope if I can bring that to Sherlock Holmes, I think that would be what I would want to do. Bring the fullness of a human being, and yeah,
I think you're gonna have so much fun with that. It's such an iconic character.
yeah,
I think he's got a darkness to him that isn't approached very much, in my opinion.
absolutely.
He's clever, but there's a dark side to him that isn't explored a whole lot in other portrayals.
Absolutely. I think, he's got narcissistic qualities. Whether or not he's in it, I don't think he's sort of in it necessarily for the right reasons. I mean, what he's doing is, yes, he is fundamentally solving crimes and trying to help people, or what he is doing is helping people. But whether that's actually why he's there, I think that's an interesting thing about human beings in general is, there's such a fine line between being brilliant and being brilliantly terrible.
Yes.
And like, a lot of the time our most brilliant minds and human sort of energies on this planet kind of meet at a crossroads and they can either go down, a really nasty route, or they can use that energy and that sort of like charismatic mess for something really positive. But it's a very fine line, and you know uh, often it's just a matter of your circumstances what you end up doing with those things. I think there's not necessarily a huge amount of a difference from Sherlock Holmes to Moriarty. I think they're actually like pretty much the same person, but just in different circumstances, and one could be the other. So yeah, I think it's so interesting. And it's great with that to have obviously so many books and so many bits of source material to explore.
I just love that you're gonna make it your own. You're such a creative individual. I think you're gonna have so much fun playing that role.
Thank you very much.
What is the one thing that we would be surprised to learn about you?
Whew. Um, I I always have my toenails painted. That's my thing. I love pedicures, and I like to paint them a different color or get them painted. I don't. I'm terrible at doing it myself, so I'm never doing it. But I love to go and get them painted. And I always am thinking about what color they're going to be for a character I'm playing. I did have to do a play once. This is probably only I've been doing this for the last maybe 3 years, but I did do a play once where I was barefoot. Well,
Mhm.
I've done a couple of times I've been barefoot, but I was barefoot. I can't believe we're just talking about feet now, but here we are. Um, Here we go. Yeah, I did. Well, I did Smoke, in which I was barefoot the entirety of that.
The whole play?
Yeah, the whole play. We were in a kind of like pit of black sand. It's very cool, actually, super, super cool. So it was kind of just after that I started getting them painted, I think, because they got so black. They
Mhm.
ended up being like my feet were just black and Megan, who I did it with, our feet were just like we'd go home and just yeah, it would take hours we were just stained with this kind of charcoal thing. So then I started kind of getting my nails painted, and then I did another play called After Sex, which was at the Arcola, and that I had to be barefoot, and they were like, "No, we can't have your nails painted." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh,
Come on, it's 2020 or whatever it was for. But no, so right now I have a nice kind of deep green color on my toenails for the character I'm doing at the moment. And I'll switch it up next time around. And who knows what I'll do for Sherlock? I don't know. But that's my that's my really like silly answer, but it is true. Most people don't know that I have, and most people are very surprised. I'm like, you should
I'm
try
not
it. It's
surprised at all.
do you get your
Express yourself.
yeah, do you get your nails painted?
I do.
Love it.
I do.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
I just went to New York with Amanda, actually. We just saw House of McQueen and we
Oh
did.
yeah, with Luke
Yep,
in. Yeah.
yep. I got to see Luke before he left,
Oh, great.
and I wanted to go with like the leathery McQueen look.
Super cool.
I've listened to your music on social media, which you call sneak peeks, and it's very emotional. It's also a little bit of a tease, Ollie, because your music is so good.
Oh,
But when I'm trying to find the full song, I think it's on purpose, and I'm okay with that. And I know that you have it coming out very soon. Two singles in 2026 and an
yeah.
album with 8 to 10 songs. I think from what you said previously, it's about maybe 12 months away or maybe sooner. But such a tease, it is brilliant. But your music makes me so emotional because I relate to each song that I've heard differently. They've made me cry, they've made me dance. It makes me feel like hopeful, but also emotional about past memories as well.
Oh.
So, what's one emotional thing that inspired you to write?
I write songs and I write poetry and I write plays and you know scripts, TV scripts and things. So I sort of write loads of things, and in each instance, when I sort of started my journey in each of those fields, which happened at different times, it was actually when I think about it, like a very like pivotal moment, and you know, it wasn't, yeah. So I guess with when it comes to songwriting, it was something I mean, I always, as a kid, would be making up tunes and things, which I'm not sure you can necessarily call it songwriting, but I was always curious about like making things up in my my imagination. But the kind of emotional instigator for writing songs came. I went to a boarding school as a teenager, and I was 12 or 13. I remember, really finding it quite difficult, being away from home, but even more than being away from home, being around. It was an all boys school for most of my time there, and yeah, it was a difficult place to be. Even though I played a lot of sport and was, very, very sporty and all that, it was a difficult place to be a kind of sensitive soul like me. I remember, genuinely being like, I don't know what to do. I felt a bit sort of lost. I didn't really have very close friendships at that time, and no one seemed to like music and the arts in the way that I did. People sort of listened to bands and listened to music and whatever and watched films, but for me, it was something that was like really important to me, and so I remember this moment very, very vividly. But I one day I was like, I just don't want to go to this next lesson, this next class. So I skipped class and I went off, just walked off to the music. There was a music department, and they had some pianos, and somehow got in there without anyone noticing, locked the door, and just sat down at a piano and was like, I'm. I don't even know if I sort of consciously. I just started writing a song. It was like this thing that just my like animal body like just needed to do and wanted to do in that moment, and it took me there and sat me down, and my hands went onto the keys and I wrote a song. I still remember that song. That I could I'm not going to because it's it's not necessarily my best work, but I remember it. I could sit down and play it, which is crazy. I remember all those first songs. None of them would I ever release now, but I remember them, and I remember so vividly what I was going through and tackling being a being a young teenager, feeling lost, feeling out of place. I was getting bullied. I felt, I just felt, yeah, very, very lost. And so for me, songwriting became a way to start to make sense of that, to have a sort of purpose and have a self-reflection, and a dialogue even with some of the people that were around me, even if I wasn't expressing it to them, it was sort of a lot of imagined conversations. And yeah, and I kept doing that for probably like 3 or 4 months. I would pick and choose which classes I felt like I could get away with
Lock the door.
skipping. Yeah, and I'd go and I'd lock the door, and then eventually I was caught,
Oh no.
um, by a music teacher who, not I was playing. To be fair, I would play pretty loud. I was like a real like hammerer, and at that point I wasn't a particularly great piano player. I played everything by ear. I couldn't read music. I was just a kind of like I was just making it up kind of as I went along, and I really was just like banging and have a very loud voice. And I think he was like, "What the hell is going on in there?" And then started knocking on the door, and I was like, "Oh no, 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 no!" But it was a very generous moment from him, and I'm still in contact with this teacher actually, who comes to see me in shows, and he was like, "Okay, I don't think you should be here, should you?" I was like, "No." And he said, "Okay, well, just pack up your stuff." And this never happened.
Oh,
And you know, so it was, yeah. So I didn't get in any trouble for it. Yeah, so that was how it all kind of began. And then quite quickly, I then got into. I found a few people at the school who also played music and wanted to be in a band. But yeah, that kind of like initial need, I think, is very important actually for artists. For it to come from a kind of authentic drive, an authentic place of wanting to create something. That need are very important. So yeah, that was it. That was how it all began for me.
so when your teacher said, "Well, I don't think you're supposed to be in here," now the answer is yes.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely. Now I mean, that's just a strange thing. And now he comes to see me in things and is very supportive. Sometimes you've got to break the rules. That's why I think when, to take it back to heroes and villains, rule breaking is what it we know. It's a very complicated thing because it can be the most important thing that a human being ever does in their lives is to is to break the rules or even break the law. I mean, I'm not like advocating for that, but I'm just, we it's the beautiful thing about art is it humanizes very complex ethical and moral choices that people make in their lives, and it reminds us that things aren't black and white, and that I hope that if I ever have children, that's something I would be able to instill in them, is that like there's no I look back on my childhood self doing that, and I go, yeah, thank God you skipped those classes. You didn't need to be in those classes. It was great. That was the best thing you could have ever done. I encourage anyone in their life to look inside themselves and go, is this what I need right now? And if it's what you need and it's not hurting anyone, then I don't see the problem with it. But that's my thought of the day.
We said, and I agree. It's like taking high risk chances. Yeah, I thought you said it beautifully. So
Yeah.
you've talked about how as a kid you hummed little tunes and record them on a little recorder. And now you do that on your phone. So old habits don't die because you're still doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some things never change. And you find out that, that it works and it's your system. So
Yeah.
my question is, when you were a kid, you said your parents got used to that now. but were you driving them nuts with how you just were like humming and recording yourself and running around? Was that always something that you did as a child?
Yes, I did drive I did drive people nuts. I think my parents in general, yeah, I actually I don't think I have, which is, love them so dearly for this because I don't think I have any memory of them ever telling me to quieten down or shut up, which is amazing considering how loud I was, and I was just always in my bedroom singing, shouting, doing funny voices, performing, and no, they were like so. I mean, yeah, so supportive, and I honestly don't. You remember these things so clearly as a kid, and I don't ever remember, an eye roll or a huff, of frustration at me, dancing around the living room, or whatever I was doing. It was just, they just always really, really encouraged it. It was more probably other parents. If I'd go round to people's houses, I remember being in the car, you'd be driven to school or something, when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, or to a birthday party, and just, I just was one of those kids who really couldn't shut up, and was always doing funny voices and repeat. I was obsessed with like catchphrases. I was making up catchphrases, and I would just, I just repeat them again and again and again and do even more silly voices and push the boundaries. And there are a few times I do take my head of probably very rightly so, various adults being like, will you please, stop it for five minutes. And so yeah, I do remember that. But in general, people were very, and my friends always, the friends that I made always really loved it, and to this day really love how silly and crazy I am, and yeah, I still love doing silly voices and impressions, and singing things. Yeah, so no, in general, I grew up in a very, which I think is so important, for a child to have a space where they can just kind of mess around. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a very creative brain that maybe has a hard time shutting off because I have that same creative brain. I don't get a lot of sleep because I'm constantly thinking of new things. And as I
Okay.
have researched you, I've kind of figured, am I accurate on that on that?
Absolutely, absolutely accurate. I'm a night owl. I like staying up late, and just kind of beavering away on stuff, writing stuff, or watching stuff, reading stuff, listening to stuff. Which I think is, I've learned to love that bit of me more and more, and kind of just accept that that's sort of how my brain works. That a lot of the time, relaxation for me doesn't look like sitting on a sunbed. It's making something, creating something, building something. But at the same time, in the process of loving it, also kind of trying to just be a little bit more um, conscious, to take care of myself, because I have had times where I've begun to really burn out. It's, as I'm sure you have, and it's then you're good to no one, when you're just kind of like fried. So, but I just love it. I feel so lucky to do this job. And so I find it very difficult to turn things down. I'm always like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll try that. Why not? Like, I love meeting people, and I love feeling inspired, and you never want to shut down inspiration. You want to run with it. So, but rest is good as well. And, I'm trying to practice that.
Yes. Like, what is your number one coping skill in a sense that you do when you do have to have those moments to reel in if necessary?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to meditate more often, even if it's just for, I mean, it sounds silly, but just for 15 seconds. I mean, if you just shut your eyes and breathe and listen for 15 seconds, it immediately is doing something for you, refocusing you. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. I do think like just reading something is useful. I see a therapist who I love, and she just kind of talking, one on one with her is really useful. I always feel like that kind of centers me.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it does. It does kind of just galvanize and solidify you in a way. And yeah, I guess it's a work in progress. I'm always trying to think of ways to
Those are great.
do that. But yeah, I love a good meal. I love a good solo meal. I like going to a restaurant and just being like, table for one, please, and sitting and eating a really great meal on my own is something I really love. I find that just such a therapeutic experience. You're just fueling your body and mind and soul and sitting with your thoughts for a little bit. So that's good.
Oh,
Um,
that.
yeah, 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 of course, of course. It's really, really so difficult. And, sometimes a conversation like this is quite good.
Yeah.
Focusing, talking, about things through.
And
Um,
Ollie, sometimes it's like when people might say that to you. I don't know if anyone has like, oh, relax, Ollie, calm down, Ollie. Sometimes it's like, I don't know if that's happened, but sometimes it's like you don't want to hear it because you are so creative and you want to express what you're thinking and you have to do it on your own time. And that's hard to explain to people
yeah,
that if this is what you're going through, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing if you're in a creative process. I call it Ollie's playpen because I've seen it on your social media. I've seen you said hammer the piano, like you were in your element. So I could see how you could get lost from the outside world from inside your playpen because you're so focused.
absolutely.
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I can see. But I also
Yeah.
know with having a creative mind when someone is trying to interfere with that. And not
Yeah,
that's happening, but sometimes you just don't want to hear that outside noise because you're so focused.
totally. Totally. And that's why I'm so grateful for the people that I do work with with my music in particular, the producer I work with, and some of the musicians who I work with who are sort of really up for up for getting into the mad playpen for a little bit, because because it is mad, and it's not normal, to do this. So you have to enter with an open mind and a willingness to jump on board and kind of just go with the flow a bit. Yeah, I agree with you, Erin. It's you've just gotta trust yourself and believe in yourself, and just embrace whatever life looks like for you, and not feel like it's like wrong, or it's the wrong speed of life, or you're spending time doing the wrong things. And like, well, if you want to do it, then do it. And again, if it's not hurting anyone, I don't see the problem with it. But yeah,
I love that. I think you take pride in the independence of what you are creating.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Kind of gives me
yeah.
Prince vibes. Is was
Yes,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's definitely
His
some
home,
Prince.
his home is 10 miles that way. Paisley Park. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
If you ever get to go to Minnesota, check out his Paisley Park home. It's a great exhibit if you're a Prince fan.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, yeah, definitely some Prince vibes in there for sure, for sure. But you're so right. I want to do it my way, and there's always loads of people wanting to get involved and tell you how to do it or not to do it, and I'm like, I just want to make this my thing. So yeah, so which means yeah, it's going in gradations, but
Gonna
it'll
be
be
worth
worth
it
it.
because it's yours.
Yeah,
There's nothing else anyone can say. It is your baby.
absolutely.
So, Ollie, you're working on Measure for Measure with the Royal Shakespeare Company. What stands out most about the experience that you're actively doing right now?
Yeah, I know. So yeah. The crazy thing about working with the RSC is you go and live in Stratford upon Avon while you do it. So it's outside of London. It's a kind of it's where Shakespeare was born. It's this sort of like really beautiful countryside, idyllic town that's like obsessed with Shakespeare. I think I absolutely love the play. Measure for Measure is a really, really interesting Shakespeare. It's not done hugely often because it's quite dark and complex, and it's deals with a lot of modern themes that people don't associate with Shakespeare, things like consent and abuse of power and sort of sex and like navigating power dynamics and gender dynamics in the workplace and things like that, with things which are extremely pertinent to our current zeitgeist and cultural time. I'm loving doing this particular play, and it's a really great version of it with an amazing director, Emily Burns. And so, there's so many things that I love about it. The cast is just insane, so talented, and I play a character who's just so interesting and has some really beautiful speeches that I feel privileged to do every night. But the thing that really does set it apart for me is I'm living in a little. I'm not at home. I'm in this little cottage in Stratford-upon-Avon, and I'm living opposite the theatre, and we're all living. All the us actors are kind of living, side by side, and we get to go for coffees and go to the pub together, and we've been playing like there's a bunch of us who have just been playing loads of different racket sports. We've been playing like squash and paddle, which is kind of like pickleball and table tennis and going for runs. And it's just been like being in a kind of holiday camp in the best way.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yep.
so yeah, to be honest, for me, it's been a real opportunity to just get out of the rat race of London, which can be a little bit intense, and to be in a slightly slower paced lifestyle for a bit, where you can really just immerse yourself in what you're doing. So yeah, I've loved it. And anyway, if you've never been to Stratford upon Avon, we only go to the 25th of October. So by the time, you might be listening to this play might be over, although there might be a future life, who knows. But it's well worth visiting. It's an amazing place, and they do plays here all year round, and it's some of the best Shakespeare you'll see in the world, 100%. And and there's amazing actors did. Luke Thompson did a play here last summer. He did Love's Labour's Lost.
So we talked a little bit about true Sherlock previously. How do you think your Sherlock, as you have him kind of prepped now, would analyze you, Ollie?
I think he'd identify a shared obsessive quality towards work, and I think knowing I have one of my sort of like passions. When I went to university, I studied theology and philosophy, and I have a bit of me that's like obsessed, which is kind of why I wanted to be an actor, obsessed with like figuring things out, and figuring out the answers, to the big questions of like why are we on this planet, and what are we doing here, and what exists, millions of miles out into the unknown universe. I think, yeah, I think Sherlock would find a lot in common with the two of us in terms of just, yeah, his kind of need for answers and need for, I think it's one of his most human qualities is he is kind of making sense of things, and that's why we do things like podcasts and, whatever it is, is because we're trying to understand. And we probably will never fully understand everything, and that's just part of being human. But we are so keen to understand, and I certainly have that quality. I'm always sort of analyzing, trying to figure it out, and so I think he'd probably be like, get on board. I want some, but what I have that I think Sherlock doesn't have. I don't think Sherlock is a particularly creative. I think he's very instinctive, but I don't think he's creative. I think he's logical brain that to him that I don't have.
Okay.
Um, so I think he'd be like, yeah, I think we'd probably work together well as a team.
There you go. That's gonna be fun to explore when you play that character.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think Sherlock Holmes is also a little manipulative
Absolutely.
and a little cocky,
Yeah.
but I think he has a big heart,
Yeah.
but he doesn't show it a lot. I in some
I
of
think that's so true. It's very guarded. I think he's very
Yeah.
stereotypically, British in that sense. He's sort of, but it's not just British people who are like this. It's loads of people, who just don't. None of us want to wear our heart on our sleeves necessarily, and I think he's definitely like an extreme version of that. I don't think he likes people
Oh,
getting close to him. So he has a lot of walls.
yes. No, he does. Your show recently sold out at Grace London
Yeah,
for
correct.
October. What
Yeah.
is that feeling of people coming to your show and watching you live your experience and your element? What does that mean to you?
That is probably one of the most crazy things and slightly terrifying things that I've ever done. I'm already like, oh my God, I can't really believe it because, as you say, this is unlike anything I've ever done. It's like fully my creation from the very beginning to the very end. It's kind of is all me. And that's I can't really rely on a director or a character as such. Although there is an element of a character about Modern Ollie, but yeah, it feels really exciting and pure and special to be just kind of given a platform to get up and share bits of me that people have never heard of before. Stories from my life, stories from other people's lives close to me, and also just my imagination and things that I hope will happen in the future or wish hadn't happened in the past or whatever it is, just trying to make sense of all that. And so, yeah, it's also crazy because I haven't released anything, and a lot of people were like, "I can't believe you're going to do a headline show without having released a song." Like that's slightly tearing up the rule book. But as we were saying earlier, you got to sometimes you got to tear the rule book up and do it your way. And I knew that I wanted to be in a space with like my core fans and supporters and you know just have the 200 of them and the one of me share things for the very first time, and yeah, it just be kind of about us that night rather than any kind of bigger plan or anything which will come later. But yeah, so it feels amazing and I'm a little bit terrified, but I'm so flattered and humbled. Yeah.
Congratulations. I it's gonna be
Thank
amazing.
Thanks so much, Erin. Thank you.
Being your own little playpen that night, and people are
I
gonna.
know. I'm welcoming everyone in to the playpen.
When you mentioned that you don't have an album or songs out yet, I'm always just like, it's torture.
I know, I know. I know I really want to get them out, but
Good things take time.
it won't be long. I promise it won't be long before things start coming out.
Okay,
So
Ollie, we're gonna jump into Bridgerton. Now I know you can't talk about a lot of things, and if you can't answer what I have prepared, it's all good. Okay. You play Footman John. You've been a part of Bridgerton since season 1 to season 4, which is set to premiere in 2026, which is wild if you think of it. In 2019, you auditioned by a self tape and you did it in 5 minutes and sent it off. And you auditioned for maybe a family member, from what I
yeah.
am interpreting. And you got this amazing role as Footman John. You have like fans out there that love your role. So I want to ask a question. What is one word that you can tell us about Footman John about season 4?
Um uh I mean it's just it has to be um flirtation will be my word. Yeah. Flirtation. The Footman John season 4.
So when Kelly Valentine called you and had you do this self tape and send it in, and then you got notice a few weeks later that you accepted this role as Footman John, would go back in 2019. What advice would you tell yourself about what's to come?
Oh, gosh. It's interesting because it's felt very, actually, kind of very gradual for me. the process of slowly kind of becoming more of a part of Bridgerton over the course of many years. So, whereas I know for some of the other cast members, it was like 0 to 100 in, a matter of 24 hours when Bridgerton season 1 came out. So I was lucky that I never had to go through a complete like extreme thing. But my advice would be what I told myself at the start of season 4 shooting, which was to just enjoy it. Just enjoy the magic of the fact that you are doing this. And it's so tempting. It is so endlessly tempting when you're on set or off set, waiting to be, to go into work, or at the end of the day, or when it's freezing cold and you're hardly doing anything, and you're like, what am I even doing here? You're frustrated, or whatever it is. Um, it's so easy to complain, and actors. I love actors, but sometimes we can you know find find the negatives in things, and I think that's a shame because actually what we're best at is finding the magic and the joy and the passion and the positive and everything, and so I just want to focus on that. There was a moment when I walked onto set this season and I just stood there and just looked around in awe for 5 minutes, and went, this is amazing. This is amazing. I'm so lucky. And, my childhood Ollie would be like mind blown and draw on the floor to be here. And so just enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Don't beat yourself up if you feel like you're not doing as well as you should or shouldn't be. You know, don't be embarrassed about being excited.
Love that.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
I think that's beautiful.
Thanks, Erin.
All right, let's have a little fun. If Footman John were single and living in the ton, who do you think would be his type? Anyone from any season is fair game.
Wow. Oh my gosh, what a question. Um, um, I think, hmm, gosh, this is Ollie thinking about Footman John here, not the writers, because the writers have other other plans and things at work. So I'm going to leave them out of this. So I'm not going down that road. But I think Footman John, um, I think he likes someone with a bit of a spark and a wit about them. I think he's also a little bit shallow. I think he likes someone who's hot. Does Footman John. Um, I think he's keen to I think Footman John's dream in a way is to kind of be a part of the Bridgerton gang, to be, you know, as kind of cool and confident and impressive as people like Anthony and Benedict. So yeah, I think like he's a man about town. I think he gets around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. Um, I think learning how to he's learning what romance is for him and navigating the difficulties of being, you know, a servant in a household which has certain like hierarchical things about it. So I think he likes to push the boundaries and kind of like try to take as much power and space as he can, but that can get him into trouble because he's a people pleaser. He wants to make people happy and, you know, he's a flirt. So I think I mean, I feel like I can't really fully answer this question, can I? Because it's going to um
It's just for fun.
For fun. Look, there's absolutely no doubt. There's no doubt that he like really loves hanging out with Eloise. Sees her as a really admirable, feisty, intelligent woman, and I think he's like kind of in awe of her, really. Like she's so smart, and yeah, and like again, is just happy to help, and you know, it, I think but he is also professional, so I think he'd be very aware that he is employed by the Bridgerton family, and first and foremost, he is their biggest supporter and fan, and is there to keep them safe and keep them happy. I think, let's say at the moment, I think Footman John, he's down the pub with some of the other below stairs characters, having a grand old time, having a few beers, and getting up to all sorts of naughtiness. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Love it. I love it, Ollie. What's
Okay.
it like performing when Footman John is observing things happening? And that tool probably has to be used in theater quite often as well. What is a method that you help express that emotion on your face in action when there's no lines, but we know, for example, Footman John has seen things like,
Yeah, he's seen a lot of things.
and it's in Bridgerton. Like you were like, how do you dial that in?
Well, I think that is actually a really difficult thing, and that's something that I've sort of that I think is different. It's very tricky because we're used to communicating with words, with text and like things. I mean, but these are people who are people of few words, and they're lower status, lower class characters, and so they don't have the same entitlement to be able to take up space in that way. So you're right. I think it's about creating an internal life. I think it's just being active. It's just being truly present, and actually, yeah, just breathing. Um, I think that the key thing is that when people think footman in a and this is how I approached it from the very beginning, and you know the writers liked it, but when people think footman or servant, they sort of think almost like a kind of robotic, like really stiff, really like I'm not here kind of quality to them. Very like withdrawn, and yes, there is an element of that, but I always wanted to kind of see how far you could go with making them fully fledged human beings. So yeah, even if they're not talking, they're not absent, they are present,
Yeah.
and they are listening, and they are reacting, what is being said in that scene, even if the show doesn't, even if the writers don't necessarily say this, it is having massive impacts on this person's life. They're about to, go downstairs and probably talk about it with everyone they're working with or try and deal with the situation. So I think just trying to build my own set of circumstances that make it feel like a fully lived in person and not just someone who is just like, yeah, absent to the reality of the situation. I think, you're listening and processing. So, and breathing. Breathing is so key. No one ever, it's hard to breathe in those characters because you just kind of tighten up and you're like, no, I'm going to breathe. I can breathe. I'm a human. I can take up a bit of space, if not that much. But yeah.
So, Ollie, this game is called Yes, No, Maybe So. Maybe so is you pleading the fifth. Okay? So it's just quick answers, yes or no, or maybe so if you do not want to answer. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Have you ever blanked on stage and had to wing it?
Yes.
Cried listening to your own song?
Yes.
Do you secretly love when fans overanalyze shows they're in?
Yes. Not secretly. I love it.
Have you ever read Bridgerton fan theories and thought, hmm, they might be
Yes.
something? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Do you,
Absolutely.
Do you have any tattoos?
No.
Okay. Do you believe in fate?
Mm, Today I'm gonna say no to that. No, I don't believe in fate, actually.
Okay. Do you believe you make your own fate?
Yeah, I believe that that yeah, you just you are where you are, but but you can change your situation if, and fate, it's too, I don't know, for where I am right now, it's too sort of romantic an idea, really, fate. It's and I think it disempowers you and maybe a little bit. It's like, oh well, it's fate, but you are your own fate. So, to a degree. I don't know. I mean, you asked me another day, and maybe I'd say yes, but I definitely I believe it. I think, yes, wherever you are, oh, sure.
Measure company. This is your half an hour call. You have 30 minutes, please.
That's
Thank
a
you.
half hour call. I think wherever you are, I'm in a theatre dressing room currently. If you are listening, there is a half hour call coming in. Yeah, I think you I am trying to embrace wherever I am in life, whether that's the perfect place or not. It is what it is, and but also kind of like looking to the future and looking to change things and looking to improve myself. So fate, yeah, I don't know. It's a no from me today, but
If you ever wrote a book, what would your book be called?
my book would be called You'll Never Guess the Ending. It's my book. You'll never guess the ending.
I
It just gets sillier and sillier.
love it.
It can't be true. Maybe it can't be true.
Be true. I love that title. So, Ollie, I think we've covered a lot here. Is there anything else that you have moving forward besides your album, your two single releases, Sherlock Holmes, Bridgerton in 2026, the play, Measures for Measures?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Please could all visitors
Sorry.
leave the backstage
Sorry,
area.
no, don't be sorry. I actually kind of love it.
End of the last performance.
Anything else that you want to mention to your fans and followers of what may be coming up for you? Is there anything else that you want to mention that we didn't get to talk about?
No, not really. I don't know when when this comes out. I'm going to be doing another theatre thing in London quite soon, which I wish I could talk about, but I can't. But I might, that's the one to be keeping an eye out for sure. It's an amazing piece. But no, I mean, like, I'm just so grateful for everyone's support of, particularly with my music stuff and my writing. It's that goes into such a deep level for me of who I am and what it's very exposing. Sometimes it's just wonderful to have such support from the fans and willingness to jump on board this crazy journey, which I really don't know where it's going. I think the magic with the music thing is like I just don't know where it's going, and we're gonna just do it together and see where we go, have as much fun as we can, and hopefully understand each other a bit better. So it's just a massive thank you from me, and I can't wait for season 4 of Bridgerton to come out and for you to see that as well, because I've, always been so proud of Footman John and I've always loved him as a character, and I'm excited for people to get to know him in the way that I know him. So yeah, thanks so much. And like I hope next year I'm gonna be going on a tour with Modern Ollie, and hopefully I'll come to a city near you and I might be able to see you at a show or something like that.
And
And I
speaking
mean
of,
you, I mean you literally, Erin, but also anyone listening.
oh, trust me, it's one of my goals. And speaking of Modern Ollie, you have Instagram of Modern Ollie and Ollie Higginson. You have two
Yes.
accounts that everyone can follow, which is going to be right here. So if you want to show your support to Ollie Higginson, make sure to follow him on Instagram. You are also on TikTok.
Yes, I am on TikTok. Yeah, I'm sort of, yeah, I'm trying to kind of build up my I need so I think I need an intervention on my TikTok at times. So sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah, The modern, yeah, exactly, yeah. Like as you said earlier, like I'm trying to just keep these things. They're the same worlds, but also they're their own things. And so
Element.
you're gonna get different stuff from the modern Ollie than you will from the Oli Higginson page, and vice versa. So
Yep.
yeah,
And the TikTok handle you can see right here. This was incredible. I know you're super busy. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on to Call Me Obsessed podcast. And I hope we can do this again in the future.
absolutely. I'd love to come back and talk again. And thank you for such kind of meaningful, insightful questions that have helped me kind of look back on the crazy journey that's been and look forward to yeah, some cool stuff coming up.
You are a cool guy, Ollie. All right.
Thank you.
Well, have a great show.
Thanks.
Bye, Ollie.
Thank you. Bye. Take care. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Erin.
Call Me Obsessed podcast.
This episode of Call Me Obsessed podcast was edited and produced by Erin and Amanda.
Always impeccable, I'm doing some shit impression of how